Fear and frustration is at the center of my conversation with immigration attorney Shan Potts. We're discussing President-elect Donald Trump's promise to round up illegal aliens. I'm Michael Real. This is Real Urban News. Attorney Shan Potts, coming out of the election of 2024, where President-elect Trump really ran his campaign based on rounding up illegal immigrants. You said, as an immigration attorney, your office has experienced an uptick in persons concerned about their immigration status and how realistic it is that they could be rounded up and put in deportation camps. Is that viable?
That's extremely viable. President Trump, in his initial run for presidency, had used immigration as a major part of his platform, and he's kind of doubled down on it. It's just that this time, there's a lot more support for his positions, and he has a lot more ability to carry out some of his positions, which have become extreme.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history to get the criminals out.
What I've seen with my clients is a tremendous amount of anxiety and a tremendous amount of fear. Over the last 10 years, I've seen, and I've been in detention facilities, I've seen mass arrests. But I think we're going to see it at a scale that we've never seen it before. The Attorney General of Texas has actually granted the administration thousands of acres of land to build new detention facilities.
These detention centers will be basically private prisons.
There are two major players in this game. The day after the election, their stock rose over 60%. So not only is this like a political movement and a political effort, no matter what side of the equation you fall on, it's about money and it's about economics. I'm an immigration attorney, I've been an immigration attorney for 20 plus years. But this is not just an immigration issue or an issue that affects other people. These private prisons also are the same private prisons that house individuals convicted of drug offenses, a lot of Black and brown people. So this is not an immigration issue. This is a civil rights issue that affects all of us. And so I'm in the immigration space, but I'm really concerned that a lot of people are going to be harmed, and we're going to see things that we've never seen before. And like I said, it's not just like an immigrant issue, but this is an issue that's going to affect all of us.
When you say people are afraid, there's an element of fear in the air. Describe what could happen. I'm driving in my car.
Well,
give us a simple but fearful example.
There are many people in our communities who they're immigrants and they have legal status, but they may have some criminal issues. That information is all readily available through our biometrics, and it could be something very, very minor or something serious. But those people are at threat of being rounded up, someone knocking on your door, arresting you and putting you in a detention facility, right? And you can be in a detention facility for months and months at a time. There are other members of the community who they're going to be job raids of workplaces where they're going out to work facilities and arresting people. And it'll be like a major roundup.
Sources also told Eyewitness News Border Patrol agents were seen at Home Depot on Ming Avenue, taking people into custody.
And here, in the moment that I was present, was where 15 people were arrested. They were my friends, and they took 3 of my family members, or 3 of my cousins. It's real, and many people don't believe me.
The other element of fear is that the military, the U.S. military, could be used to round up people, individuals who are in questionable status.
Here in California, because of our demographics, there is not the sentiment, the anti-immigrant sentiment that may be felt across the other parts of the country. So you'll have sanctuary cities. So whether or not local law enforcement will be involved in it, that's an open question. The administration has already announced that they will be using the military to facilitate these roundups. That can involve military, National Guards, and so forth to help do this. Now, in areas such as Texas, for example, they may have the support of state officials or local law enforcement. But even in states like California, where there may not be that appetite, that's where you're going to see the military getting involved to execute this. And it's going to require the efforts of major forces, because we're talking about upwards of 15 to 20 million people. That's larger than most states.
A group of people are rounded up, are placed in detention centers. Because California is like Florida, an ag state, an agriculture state. And a lot of these people work in those areas. Mm-hmm. Who does those jobs?
When it comes to agriculture, for probably the last 100 years, we've had policies where workers would come in, they would work on the farmlands, and then they would come out. They were like seasonal workers. So there's a historical and a political and a social context of farm workers. But talking about present day times, one, we're gonna see crops rot in the fields. Two, we're going to see the prices. You know how we were complaining about the prices through the last administration? You're going to see unprecedented economic impact, and this affects everyone. So it's not just, now a lot of these efforts they're based on biases and fear-mongering and xenophobia, but this is going to just reach out to everyone, no matter what side of the political equation food prices are going to go up, crops are going to rot on the field, and there's going to be a major economic impact to the country. That's not where my major concern is. My concern is the human suffering of people who are actually going to experience that roundup. Mothers, children, fathers, our sons, or the sons of other people. That's my concern, is that human suffering.
You know, when this was on the forefront of the news a few years ago, the concern was children being ripped from their parents' arms. And how do we keep the children safe? Where will they be? How do the parents, remain in contact with the kids? Those kind of things come to mind. From a legal perspective, what does a family do that is facing immigration challenges?
I'll share something with you. A lot of times I'll get people to come see me, and they'll say to me, if I'm stopped by the police, do they have the right to ask me this or to search this? There's a distinction between a right to do something and the power to do something. So, what we tell our children, if you're stopped by the police, just to cooperate and behave. But now, as you've seen in social media, you don't have the right to do this. You don't have the right to do this. A person may not have the right to do something, but they may have the power to do it because they have the gun, right? So what people's rights are, you need to get people, immigrant communities, you need to become informed, having an attorney that you can reach out to let you know what you need to do in these circumstances. But my point is that although there may be legal rights, whether or not you'll be able to execute those rights or enforce those rights is questionable. The Supreme Court just recently gave this president unprecedented powers. And now that party controls the House and possibly the Senate.
Mm-hmm. So and the Supreme Court.
And the Supreme Court. Uh-huh. So talking about what you have a right to do doesn't really mean anything if you don't have the power to enforce it.
How do we gain power? How does the common man gain power, or is this power just going to be elusive?
That's an interesting question. You gain power by being informed. You can't have authority or agency to do something when you're in the dark. So the first step to gaining power is being informed. Like your child is afraid of the dark. You turn on the lights. They become empowered. They become informed because they no longer see the boogeyman. But when you're ignorant to things, it allows for many things to happen because you're, and I don't mean ignorant in a malicious way, but I mean ignorant, not being aware. So information is the first key to gaining power. Right now, our information is distorted because our information, you hear what you want to hear. Your news channels you listen to, they're preaching to the choir. So that's a part of the problem. But you gain power by being informed. You gain power by participating, by voting. Kamala Harris probably lost the elections because people just sat on the couch. So it's either they weren't informed, or they didn't get out and vote, or they were apathetic. And the problem is that we can always be apathetic, not care, or moving on our lives when the issue is affecting someone else until they knock on your door. So this is not just me talking about immigrants and how it hurts me that I know other people are going to be hurt, but it's talking about how, I'm an African-American man. I have the stories of my parents, my uncles, my aunts, and the things that I've experienced. So this is a selfish message. This is a message how this pain is going to come to all of our doorsteps. So it's not like
one way or another.
One way or the other.
Sooner or later.
Sooner or later, either in the karmic, cosmic way that you're able to sit somewhere and you can sit somewhere and feel the suffering of another human being and being apathetic. That's a harm, or the more direct physical harm that it comes to you.
And because this issue, this immigration issue, and Trump and his Trump administration, threatening to round up people with, local law enforcement and police, people are so paranoid and so afraid. Some are even moving out of the country.
I have clients who are U.S. citizens who are interested in moving out of the country, and I'm helping them move out of the country. A lot of these people are high wealth individuals, and so they have the ability to move. So I know people who are very informed, who are consulting with their advisors, consulting with me, seeing how they can get out of the country. But on the immigration front, I have people who are like, they want to get ahead of it. Most people don't have the luxury just to get up and move, because I may not have status, but my wife is a citizen. My children are citizens. My grandchildren are citizens. I've been here for 40 years. I have nowhere to move back to. I have many clients who don't even speak the language of the country they're from. I have clients who've been here since they were 6 months old. They're 40 years old. So if you can imagine that harm, that trauma. So yeah, you're right. I hear people are afraid that people are thinking about moving, but usually those are only people who have the ability to do that. Our conversation about the threat and the anxiety and the paranoia, usually when we use that word, the threat or the paranoia, what we're talking about is this fear, this unreasonable fear. But this fear is extremely reasonable. This fear will manifest itself. So it's just not like this paranoia. I truly believe that we will see. And they promise that this is going to be on the #1 item on their agenda.
So we can witness, as citizens, people being deported, people being snatched off the street. I know that sounds maybe kind of carnal, but is that where we are now?
We're past that.
What's the motivation?
I believe it is power. I believe it is maintaining power, societal power. There's a change in demographics in society, and I think that creates a lot of apprehension. There's a fear that we may no longer be in power. There's xenophobia, there's hate, there's racism. It's a whole spectrum of things. I tend to believe that people in their core are good. And I tend to believe even those people we disagree with, even that quote unquote racist, they're doing it from a motive of their own self-interest. A lot of times it's ignorant and xenophobia, but it's fear. And so I think what's driving this, it's fear, it's ignorance, it's power, and it's apathy about the suffering of other human beings.
Scary to go outside, and we don't even know if we're gonna be here tomorrow. I don't know if I'm gonna be here in a month, in 3 years, 1 year, and what is gonna happen with my daughters. I mean, they were born here. This is their country, and my country as well.
Your family member's been rounded up. You get the call, I'm at the detention center, I'm at the roundup. I've been snatched out of my car. What should that family member do to stay in contact, with the family member who's been rounded up? But this sounds like a time that you need an attorney.
I've had families that come to see me. They're here with their children. Children are waiting out in the lobby. The parents get arrested and put in detention facilities. There's no call for me from that person. It's a 16-year-old, 14-year-old who finds my card on their refrigerator, who says their parents didn't come home. And then we have to kind of track them down. We're not gonna be in a situation, I don't know, I can't predict the future. But the likelihood that people are gonna be calling their attorneys saying, hey, I've been rounded up, I don't see that. I see what's gonna happen. There's gonna be mass roundups. Family members are gonna be wondering where their loved ones are at. Children are gonna be coming home from school and one parent may or may not be there, or both. And it's just gonna be utter chaos. So what you do is not what you do then, is what you do now. It's getting ahead of the curve and trying to figure out what I can do now. Who do I need to speak with now to protect myself? What are my options? So we don't want to be speaking with our attorney when we get home and our spouse is not home or our parents aren't home. We want to be speaking with an attorney now to understand what should I do now to mitigate this and what should I do in case this happens.
So if a person knows they have some immigration issues or they have a questionable immigration status here in the States, they need to contact an attorney before.
Anyone who's not a U.S. citizen has an immigration issue.
We see in media, we think this is a Hispanic issue, a Haitian issue. And as African American, I personally don't think it's me, but it is me.
100%. I have clients who are doctors. I have clients who own businesses. I have clients who are mechanics. So it's gonna cross all of the ethnic categories, all of the national categories, and all the economic categories. If you are an immigrant and you're in violations of the law, this is a potential consequence if you're in violation of the immigration laws. But sometimes things don't just stop on the legal boundaries. Sometimes, because it's not like they're gonna ask questions and detain later. It's not gonna happen that way. It's gonna be chaotic, it's gonna be mass arrest, and then we're gonna figure it out as we go. And as we're figuring it out, the suffering happens in the meantime. You know, the people are detained. Like, I represent people in removal proceeding. I represent people who are detained. Sometimes we're successful with that to show that they shouldn't have been detained. But by the time we get that resolved, it can be months and months and months. And those are the success stories. There's also the stories of people who unfortunately get removed. There's a lot of fear and concern. And now is the time to kind of get your answers and to be informed. Like I said, being in the light and being informed is where it starts.
How long do you think this is going to take? Because I know everybody's saying, well, day one, I'm going to sign this, I'm going to sign that.
Well, I think it's going to be rolled out in segments, and they're like certain populations that are the most at risk.
Okay.
You know, and so those populations that are most at risk, you're going to see that very soon, like within the weeks and months after.
And what are those populations?
Those are going to be people who previously been ordered deported.
Okay.
So they have an order of deportation, and so they never executed those. They never left.
Why would you not leave if you've been told you can't stay?
For many reasons, right? There's like a million stories, but from my own personal experience, there are some people who have nowhere to go. I have clients who they're young people in their 20s and their 30s, and they've been here literally since they're infants, 2 or 3 years old. Many times, they don't even speak the language of the country. I have so many clients. I speak Spanish. It's not my first language, but I speak Spanish. But I have so many clients, I can speak the language better than they can. They can't even carry on a conversation. So it'll literally mean they'll be homeless. No family, no connections. Now, whether or not that justifies them not leaving or not, that's just the reality.
Because you're breaking the law.
Yeah, we break the law every day. We break the law every day. There are laws that are made because they're to keep the public order. There's laws called scuff laws. So I'm not excusing that.
Sure.
I'm just explaining the human condition of it, on why people may or may not leave. Some people feel that they may not have a choice.
So I can imagine the police or some kind of detention agency pulling you and saying you have to leave. That has to tug on
Yeah.
the human heart.
I see that a lot. I see so many different stories. I see young people who become aware of their status, after they graduate from high school or when they're trying to go into college. I see people who have just been here they have grandchildren here, and they've just been here forever. There's like a million different stories. And people have to navigate what they do in those situations. And it may sound like, hey, you don't have status in the country or you're not authorized to be here. But the reality of it is we're dealing with people who've been here for many years. We're dealing with a lot of people who have nowhere to go. They don't speak the languages of those countries. And we're dealing with situations where it's not viable. Sometimes their lives are at stake. Sometimes they've fled their countries because of civil war or because their lives have been in jeopardy. So there's a million different stories. Does it justify that? It explains it, and it puts it in context.
Now, because there are so many different stories and scenes, there has to be a call to action. What steps are you all taking, your firm taking, to combat this onslaught of deportation? And
I try to channel my fear and concern about this issue with very constructive calls to action, because there's a lot of emotion and a lot of passion built up on this. If I'm having these feelings, I can only empathize with what my clients are feeling, but I have to channel that and be very constructive. Be informed. Speak to an attorney. Have a game plan. Understand your immigration your options. Get an analysis as to what can I do if this happens? What can I do now? And what can I do if this actually comes to play?
what should I expect?
What should I expect? And what can I do now?
Since the election, your staff members have been working around the clock trying to combat and deal with the onslaught of interest.
It's been kind of unprecedented, the amount of phone calls, the amount of my clients who are just, the emails are off the chain. I get tons and tons of emails. I get phone calls. We're inundated with all of this concern. And we're only a couple weeks out of the election.
Here at the Shan Potts Law Office, you all have been inundated with calls and concerns regarding immigration issues in this new returning administration from President Trump. He promised to round up and ship you back home.
Absolutely. We have to take President Trump at his word. He's saying this stuff, and the indication is that they're serious about it. So our clients right now are experiencing a lot of anxieties. So we need to engage with them because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Some people are hearing this from certain news sources. So what we need to do is we need to meet with everybody. We need to let them know what to expect, what they can do, what actions they can take now to set themselves up so that when this new Trump administration comes in, they are prepared.
So you do have a room full of cases, boxes, and file cabinets full of cases.
Yeah, this is only a small piece. This is like 20-something years of just stories. These are real people, real stories. It's lives in these boxes. And
each folder represents a life, a family.
It represents a family, a grandfather, a grandmother, a child, a husband, a wife, a son, a daughter. And it's my job, it's my profession. We are a business, but I have I care. These are real people.